Let's bring in New Jersey Republican Congressman Jeff Van Drew. He's a member of the Homeland Security Committee and the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Congressman, the White House says that presidential speech on Thursday night was not political. What do you say?
It was definitely political. It was definitely bizarre. It looked like the introduction, literally, that a dictator would have to try to frighten his or her subjects. It was an awful speech, done in an awful way with that blood red light just bathing the entire area. I've never seen anything like it before, to be honest with you. And the worst of it is, I mean, really, you know, on a lighter note, it looked like something that could really introduce a Dracula movie or a Frankenstein movie. I certainly hope he doesn't do that again. But the point is, it was to scare us. The point is, it was to demean over 50% of the population of America and say that they're bad people. And that's unacceptable for the President of the United States. He works for us. John, we don't work for him.
Yeah, he spent a lot of time bashing MAGA Republicans, as he called them, you know, a danger to the democracy, in his words. But there are a lot of things that he didn't mention. And we put together a little graph of some of the items that weren't mentioned in the president's speech, things like inflation and the fentanyl crisis and debt and gas prices, the drug cartels, crime, abortion. None of those got a mention in this speech that he said was non-political. Why?
Well, I mean, come on. And he should have mentioned all those things. This was a political speech to scare people to not vote Republican, number one. And there's no doubt about it, and we all know that. Didn't talk about one major issue, and you just mentioned them all there. People really want to know, what is going to happen to inflation? What is your plan really? Why are our borders open and people just bleeding in? Do we have so much fentanyl and nobody's really doing anything about it, but just allowing more and more and more to come in? Why don't we have a real energy policy? Why doesn't he change the energy policy that he has? What does he think about the issues that are affecting men and women, Americans, the very people that he, you know, demeaned in his speech? Needed to be uplifted, needed a feeling of warmth and togetherness of how we could fix these problems. He did exactly the opposite. It truly was terrible. It was an awful sight to see.
Perhaps no surprise that his predecessor, former President Trump, took the stage last night and excoriated the current president for that speech. But former Republican Representative Charlie Dent said he doesn't think that the Trump speech did the party or the former president any good. Listen.
I'm not so sure that the former President Trump did anyone any good with that speech tonight. Just by showing up in Pennsylvania, he is making the election much more about himself. And of course, most Republican candidates don't want anything to do with Donald Trump in this general election. They want this to be about Joe Biden and the Democrats.
What do you think about that observation? I mean, should former President Trump, you know, essentially stay out of some of these issues, some of these races?
No, look, you know, former President Trump was able to bring many people across the finish line in the primaries. In fact, almost everybody that ran the primary as a Republican that got the endorsement of President Trump got across the finish line, number one. Number two, he had thousands of people there, lots of excitement, lots of warmth, lots of belief in the future of America. That's all good for whomever is running in a particular area. That didn't hurt anybody. We know it's not all about President Trump. We know there are individual candidates running, but certainly does he help? No, the one that shouldn't have gone out was Joe Biden. He shouldn't have given that speech bathed in blood red, trying to scare and demean the people of America that don't agree with him. That's the person who shouldn't have come out. And that's who Charlie Dent really should be talking about, how Biden shouldn't have said a thing, because whatever he did just hurt Democrats even more.
Very quickly, I want to take a look at a Wall Street Journal poll that shows that the advantage, the generic congressional ballot advantage, seems to be tilting these days toward the Democrats. 38% say they would vote for a generic Democrat candidate. This is among independent voters. 32% say Republican. Why do you think that is? Do you agree with those numbers?
Those numbers aren't right. I mean, we've gone through this before. We went through this in the last election. We've gone through it in other elections. Polling is an instrument that needs to be done very carefully, and it needs to be done in a way that we make sure that the people we are polling are really likely voters and are going to vote. I'm going to tell you, and you can interview me the day after Election Day if you want, I'm going to tell you this is going to be a big red wave, that Americans are tired of this. They're tired of all the problems we have. They're tired of the inflation. They're tired of demeaning police officers. They're tired of making our Army, Navy, Marines woke. They're tired of what happened in Afghanistan. They are tired of not having a real energy policy. They are tired of fentanyl. They're tired of open borders. And to the point now that we have enough illegals living here, many of whom are dangerous, that literally we could make up another state just based, it would be the 35th largest state in the union. Come on, they're tired, and they're tired of Joe Biden and the Democrats.
We might pencil you in for that day after election interview. New Jersey Republican Congressman Jeff Van Drew, we appreciate it. Thank you.